We're getting ready to take a break. I've got one more question to ask. This one comes via Twitter from Brian Polark. Brian asks, Doug, what is one key to consistently solid bunker play?
Consistent bunker play.
Don't get in.
This is something that again is vitally important, and it's basically it's the way I teach bunker play is controlling the depth at which the club enters the sand. So whether you got fluffy sand, wet sand, hard sand, controlling the depth that the club enters the sand. If you dig the club into the sand, you're going to be inconsistent. The club has to bottom out in the sand consistently. And I do it a certain way. It's a hard way to sit here and explain to you. If you got a sand wedge here or something.
Could you grab a wedge for him, please?
Wedge here. Those kids. The biggest thing that I find with bunker play, first of all, is focusing on the design that the club, making sure it's made properly for you with the right bounce. Okay, that's the first thing. One of the things that I always did to my wedges when I had them made is I had the heel cleaned off and shaved down. Okay, and the reason I had the heel cleaned and shaved down is so I could sit that club and I could get that face opened up. So the first thing that I would do in a bunker is I play the same ball position for virtually every bunker shot. And it's about where I play a driver. Okay? And I play the ball way forward. Okay? And as I hit the bunker shot, I don't take the club outside. I don't take the club inside. But the one thing that I do is I unwind and I turn back to the ball. I let the club head pass under my hands. Okay? I don't just flip it. I do it as my chest turns through. So as my chest turns through, basically what that's doing is that is getting the club back to the ball in a perfectly vertical position, which then the bounce, club enters the sand, sand throws the ball out. And that is, again, that's how guys are hitting it on tour.
So for fluffy sand, you have a huge margin of error.
Yes, you do.
And on really hard packed sand, you have no margin of error. So
Agreed.
Would you go with less bounce?
Yes. Less bounce on hard sand, probably more bounce on fluffy sand. But again, the only thing that I might change a little bit with that reel, if the sand is just wet and the ball's sitting in the sand, I'm still okay with what I'm doing. If it's kind of compacted like maybe rain and there's a puddle that's dried and it's just really firm, I'm going to make sure I go down and get some sand so I don't blade the ball. Does that make sense to you? That's the only thing that I would ever change. If the sand is wet and raked, it's fine. If it's fluffy and dry, how I said is perfectly fine. But when it is compacted, maybe a spot's dried out from rain, then I will go down and get sand first, so I don't send it into next week.
So if it's really hard packed, how do you prevent it from skipping? Because you don't know what the consistency is until you hit it.
Well,
And if it's really hard packed, it's going to skip.
what I always did with sand is when I got into the bunker and I was getting ready to position myself, I used my feet, hopefully, to tell me what the sand is like here. Fortunately, on tour, we played in, the bunkers were consistent. So you never had to worry about, if my feet are dug in X and I know the depth, I don't have to worry about it there. With public golf courses, yeah, it's going to change. I mean, it's different. But I try to use my feet, trust my feet with how my feet are digging into the sand and how easily or how hard I have to work my feet. That's how I determine the texture of the sand. It's through my feet.
If it's really hard pan, do you ever just try and hit the ball first and trap it and then to pop it up?
The only way I would do that is if I had a lot of green to work with, to where I know that I could pinch that ball and I could use the whole green to run it back I may even use like a pitching wedge or something, or a 52-degree wedge, and not my sand wedge. But again, that's just, again, it's a hard shot. It's like the 50-yard bunker shot. 50-yard bunker shot's brutally difficult, and there is multiple ways to do it, but it's a very difficult shot. Any other questions before we go to a quick break here?